ISIS, we haven't done anything on ISIS in a couple weeks, and ISIS also has sort of fallen out of the news in the last month, although, again, we are at war right now in Syria with no congressional authorization. Have you heard me say that yet? But some interesting video and pictures. We've got some pictures for you of ISIS kids in training, literally. That is what you're looking at right here. We've got 5 pictures for you, so we're going to scroll through them. They're dubbed the Caliphate Cubs. The children appear to be a little more than 10 years old and are dressed in full combat gear as they struggle to hold weapons while standing in front of ISIS's infamous black flag. And these photos were released by the official Islamic State media. Again, not the first time we've seen stuff like this. We did a video a couple months ago about this Australian kid who was like 18 years old, who's like a leader for ISIS right now.
But these kids are like 10.
Yeah, so, all right. So what's the grossest part here? Is it now just the raw age that the indoctrination has begun? Is that the worst part here?
I don't think this is new. I'll say that.
No, it's not.
I think that they've been doing this for a very long time. I think that they just are targeting. They know that there's a fear factor. You know, it's terrorism. Mm-hmm. And when we talk about terror, this is one of the ways to accomplish it without even committing any atrocities, to show the world exactly what they're doing. I mean, it's very reminiscent to me of Hitler Youth. It's very reminiscent of this. But we all know that this happens in madrasas anyway, that it's like, get them while they're young, indoctrinate them, and now these are pretty much soldiers for Allah, for Muhammad, for the Caliphate, as they were calling it.
So in a weird way, is this stuff more fucked up than the beheadings? That's what I keep thinking. Like the beheading is a one-shot deal, and you know, they every few weeks or whatever it is. I'm not diminishing it or minimizing it in any way, but this thing where they're taking these kids and literally breeding this stuff that is going to last for generations.
Yeah, they turn them into robots, I feel like. You know, they're not even little kids anymore. It's like they've done so much of this that by the time they've reached, you know, even a teenager or later on into adulthood, it's almost like second nature to do terrorist attacks. Yeah. It just feels normal.
So what can we do? I'm guessing that these bombings that we're going to do are not going to stop them from teaching kids. If anything, it just proves they go, oh, look, they're dropping bombs on us, and then it gets the kids more. So what do we do?
I mean, this is the long game. This is diplomacy. You know, unfortunately, this is improving educational efforts in parts of the world that may neighbor Syria, that may neighbor Afghanistan, that may neighbor Iraq. You know, it's ensuring that.
Yeah, where are those guys? They never seem to do anything. Why is it everyone hates the America for coming in, and then at the same time, if we don't go in, these guys, those neighbors never seem to do anything?
And I think a lot of times it's because they don't have as much ability as we do. I mean, for us to come in from across the ocean and kind of put troops on the ground or send missiles over is a lot less risky than for a neighboring country to invade. And especially when we're talking about terror cells, when we're talking about things that aren't necessarily state sanctioned, it gets very complicated. And so, I mean, granted, I am not an expert in this kind of international conflict, this kind of diplomatic relations, but I think it's both. You know, when we bomb madrasas, when we go in and we bomb terror suspects, it breeds more terrorism. We know that. It's a recruiting tool for ISIS. And I think, unfortunately, this stuff is going to happen until we start to see major change affected in parts of the world where there are pseudo-democratic governments taking hold, where we see individuals who are more who have opportunities for education that didn't have opportunities for education before. But it's a long game, a very long game.
I was going to say, I don't know exactly where those are in that part of the world, but where are the children's groups? Like, where is UNICEF or the UN, or shouldn't this be like something that everyone forgetting?
That's what I was just going to say. Like, we talk about the United States intervening, and I think that's really important, but I think it's also really important that it's not just us. Otherwise, people get irritated. They say, oh, the United States is just poking their nose in other people's business, which we've been known to do a few times before, and I think it's important that when we actually do go and do these things, that we eventually leave. Yeah. Because we have, you know, this reputation of staying in other countries for far too long.
You mean like that 12-year thing that we just signed with Afghanistan to be there through 2024, like that thing? Yeah.
Stuff like, but I mean, I think like in situations like this, children's groups, like you just said, need to come together and do something. Because
so where are they,
It's tough
really?
Because where are the kids going to go? Like, we're going to have to establish refugee camps. And unfortunately, when you look at, you know, the efforts that UNICEF has had historically in, for example, parts of Africa that are experiencing civil war or that are experiencing genocide, those kids don't want to be caught up in that. So if they can escape and go to a refugee camp, that's where they'll want to go. these kids are not going to willingly leave.
Yeah.
They're so indoctrinated that they're fighting now for ISIS, and they feel very much a part of ISIS. They feel a responsibility. They feel a pride in the work that they're doing, and it's a whole different conversation at that point.
Yeah, and I used to do a bit about this in my stand-up literally 10 years ago, that if we would just drop video games there, that they'd much rather play video games than do that kind of stuff.
That's a great idea.